Captain Park Jin-ho stood on the bridge of the Cannes Taeguk and watched the stars through the main view screen. 6 months in deep space had made the endless darkness feel almost normal. His ship was small compared to the military vessels from the old war stories, just 400 meters long with a crew of 380 people. But it was humanity's first real deep space explorer, and that made him proud. The mission was simple enough. Map new star systems. Look for planets that humans could live on someday. Search for signs of alien life. So far, they had found nothing but empty space and dead rocks. Park was starting to think they were alone in the universe. Lieutenant Commander Kim Mirai sat at the tactical station, running another system check on the weapons. She did this 3 times every shift, even though nothing ever changed. Park understood why. Mirai had been a soldier before becoming a space officer. Old habits died hard. She always wanted to be ready for a fight, even when there was no one to fight. At the science station, Dr. Lee Hyan was studying sensor readings from the current star system. He looked excited about something. Park walked over to see what had caught his attention. "Captain, look at this," Lee said, pointing at his screen. "The energy readings from our new engine modifications are fascinating. Engineer Han's changes reduced our power use, but they created this unusual signature. I've never seen anything like it." Park looked at the display but couldn't make sense of the technical data. "Is it dangerous?" "No, not at all. Just interesting. The pattern is very unique." Down in engineering, Han Doyen was probably very pleased with himself. The young engineer loved making improvements to the ship's systems. Sometimes his confidence annoyed the other officers, but nobody could argue with his results. The ship ran better than ever. The quiet routine of the bridge was suddenly broken by an alert from the sensor station. The officer there, a young woman named Specialist Kang, looked confused. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange. About 0.3 light years away. It's massive, sir. Artificial." Everyone on the bridge went quiet. Park felt his heart beat faster. "Can you identify it?" "No, sir. It's like nothing in our database. The size readings don't make sense. It would have to be at least 1,000 kilometers long." Mirai stood up from her station. "That's impossible. Nothing that big could be artificial." "I'm telling you what the sensors show," Kang replied, her voice shaking slightly. Park opened his mouth to give orders, but before he could speak, the massive object vanished from the sensors, just gone as if it had never been there. "Did we lose it?" Park asked. "No, sir. It jumped away. And now—" "Oh no." Kang's fingers moved quickly across her controls. "Captain, we have 17 new contacts. All around us. They just appeared." The main view screen changed to show the tactical display. 17 red dots surrounded the blue dot that represented the Taeguk. Each red dot was enormous. "Battle stations!" Mirai shouted before Park could say anything. Alarms blared throughout the ship. "Sir, permission to charge weapons." Park held up his hand. "Wait, are they targeting us?" Kang checked her readings. "No, sir. They're just sitting there. Watching us, maybe." "Then we wait too," Park said. "Dr. Lee, start broadcasting a greeting message on all frequencies. Every language we have. Add some basic math and science to show we're intelligent." Lee nodded and got to work. His hand shook a little as he typed. This was what he had dreamed about his whole life. First contact with aliens, but now that it was happening, he looked more scared than excited. For 3 hours, nothing happened. The alien ship stayed in position. They didn't respond to any messages. They didn't move closer or farther away. They just watched. The crew stayed at battle stations, but the initial panic slowly changed to confusion. Mirai paced back and forth behind her station. "This doesn't make sense. Why surround us and then do nothing? Maybe they're as confused as we are," Lee suggested. "Maybe they're trying to figure out what we are." Park was about to order a shift rotation when something changed. The alien ship started moving. But they weren't attacking. They were backing away. "They're retreating," Kang said, sounding as surprised as everyone else felt. "Retreating?" Mirai looked at her tactical display. "From us? That makes no sense at all." Park watched carefully as the alien ship slowly increased their distance. They weren't running away exactly. They were being careful, maintaining a specific distance from the Taeguk. "Try moving us forward," Park ordered. "Nice and slow. Let's see what they do." The helmsman engaged the engines at minimum thrust. The Taeguk crept forward. Immediately, the alien ships adjusted their positions. They moved back, keeping the same distance as before. Lee's eyes went wide. "Captain, They're maintaining exactly 200,000 kilometers from us. Every time we move, they compensate. They're afraid of us, Park said quietly. The realization felt absurd. His little ship against 17 giants. It should be the other way around. That's impossible, Mireille said. Look at the size difference. Each one of those ships could probably destroy us with a single shot. And yet they're keeping their distance, Park replied. The question is why? What do they see when they look at us? The answer came faster than expected. All 17 ships vanished at once, jumping away to faster-than-light travel. But they left something behind. Small objects appeared on the sensors, dozens of them, floating in space around where the alien ships had been. Sensor boys, Kang reported. They're watching us. Even though they left, they still want to know what we do. Park sat down in his command chair and took a deep breath. First contact had just happened. But it wasn't what anyone had expected. The aliens had seen them, surrounded them, and then run away. Humanity had just met another intelligent species, and that species was afraid of them. Stand down from battle stations, Park ordered, but keep shields up and weapons ready. Dr. Lee, start analyzing everything we recorded. I want to know everything about those ships. Kang, track those sensor boys and see if you can figure out what they're looking for. Mireille came to stand beside his chair. What are you thinking, sir? Park stared at the view screen where the alien ships had been. I'm thinking that we just became the most dangerous thing these aliens have ever seen. And I have no idea why. Lee called out from his station. Captain, I'm seeing a pattern in the data. Those ships scanned us extensively, but they focused most of their attention on our engine signature, the unusual pattern I mentioned earlier. So it's our engines they're afraid of? Mirai asked. Maybe, Lee said. Or maybe our engines remind them of something else. Something that scares them. Park made his decision. Plot a course following the sensor buoys. If these aliens are afraid, I want to know why. If humanity is in danger, Earth needs to know. We follow them. Sir, that could be dangerous, Mireille warned. Everything about this situation is dangerous, Park replied. But running home without answers would be more dangerous. Prepare a message probe with all our data. Send it back to Earth. Then we move forward. As the crew carried out his orders, Park couldn't shake a strange feeling. Somewhere out there in the darkness, an alien civilization was watching them. And for reasons he didn't understand, that civilization was terrified. The Kans Teguk and its crew had just become players in a game they didn't know they were playing. And the stakes might be higher than anyone could imagine. Supreme Admiral Krathnos watched the sensor recordings for the 5th time. His clawed hands gripped the edge of his command table so hard that the metal bent slightly. Around him, his bridge crew worked in tense silence. They had all seen the data. They all knew what it meant. The energy signature was unmistakable. After 3,000 years, it had returned. The architects had come back. Krathnos was 287 years old. He had commanded fleets for over a century. He had destroyed 12 emerging civilizations and crushed countless rebellions. Nothing had ever made him feel fear. Until now. Send for High Counselor Threnica, he ordered. Tell her this is a Priority 1 emergency. She needs to see this immediately. While they waited for the counselor to arrive, Krathnos pulled up the ancient records. Every child in the Empire learned about the architects in school, but most thought they were just legends. Warnings to keep civilizations obedient. But Krathnos knew the truth. He had clearance to see the real historical files. 3,000 years ago, the galaxy had been different. 5 young species were growing, building their first empires, learning to travel between stars. Then the architects arrived. Nobody knew where they came from. Their ships were alive somehow, grown instead of built. Their technology seemed like magic. They could reshape entire planets with a thought. The architects claimed they had seeded life across the galaxy. They said they were gardeners, and now they had come to check on their garden. 3 of the 5 species failed their judgment. The architects declared them too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous to exist. Those 3 species were erased in a single day. Billions dead. Entire worlds turned to dust. The 2 surviving species, including Krathnos' own people, built the empire on the ashes of their dead rivals. They made a promise. Never again would they be helpless. Never again would they wait for someone else to judge them. They would become so strong that no one could threaten them. For 3,000 years, the Empire had kept that promise. High Counselor Threnica arrived 6 hours later. She was a Kelkin, an insect-like being with 4 arms and compound eyes that could see in multiple directions at once. Her species had excellent memory. They kept records of everything. You summoned me, Admiral? Her voice clicked and buzzed through the translator device. Krathnos showed her the recordings. Look at this energy signature. Tell me what you see. Threnica studied the data for several minutes. Slowly, all four of her arms began to shake.
No, this cannot be.
The architects departed. They transcended. They are gone. Are they? Krathnos pulled up more sensor readings. This ship appeared in our territory. When we surrounded it, our officers froze. They could not bring themselves to attack. Do you know why? Because every instinct screamed at them to run. This signature, this pattern, it is identical to the architect vessels from the old records. Threnica's translator fell silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. I need to access the deep archives. There may be information that changes this situation. 3 days later, an emergency council meeting was called. All 12 members of the Imperial High Council gathered in the capital. Military officers filled the gallery. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Krathnos presented his case. We must strike now with overwhelming force. 10,000 ships. We hit them before they can spread, before they can judge us again. Several council members agreed loudly, but Threnica raised one of her 4 arms. May I present a different view? She projected images from the deep archives onto the main display. These are the most complete records we have of the architects. Look carefully at their ships. They were organic, alive, they traveled alone. They never operated in groups. Their technology was so advanced that our ancestors could not even understand it. Then she showed the recordings from the Teguk encounter. Now look at this vessel. It is clearly mechanical, built from metal and alloys we recognize. It uses physics that we understand. Yes, the energy signature is similar, but the ship itself is completely different. And look at their behavior. They attempted communication. They held position when threatened. These are not the actions of the architects. Then what are they? Another council member demanded. I do not know, Threnica admitted. Perhaps descendants. Perhaps students. Perhaps they found old architect technology and learned to copy it. But I do not believe they are the architects themselves. Krathnos slammed his fist on the table. We cannot take that risk. If you are wrong, if they are the architects returned, hesitation will doom us all. The council argued for hours. A third faction emerged, led by paranoid military officers who wanted to evacuate the capital and hide. The empire was fracturing over fear. Meanwhile, far from the capital, Captain Velmara commanded her cruiser on routine patrol. She was young for a captain, only 60 years old. Her species had been conquered by the Empire 800 years ago. She had risen through the ranks through skill and determination. When the alert came about the strange human ship, Velmara studied the reports carefully. Something did not add up. She ran simulations and comparisons. The human ship was tiny, primitive. Its weapons were laughable compared to Imperial technology. Yet the entire military was panicking. She sent a private message to High Counselor Threnica, offering her analysis. The counselor responded quickly, inviting Velmara to join a secret project. Someone needed to make direct contact with these humans. Someone needed to learn the truth. Velmara volunteered. Back on the Teguk, 3 weeks had passed since the first encounter. The human ship had followed the sensor buoy trail through 17 star systems. Each time they jumped, Imperial ships detected them immediately and maintained their distance. Dr. Li Haiyan had been working around the clock to analyze the alien technology. Captain, I think I understand how they track us. Our engine signature acts like a beacon. They can detect it from incredible distances. Engineer Han joined them on the bridge. He looked tired but excited. I can modify the engines to mask the signature. It would take about a week of work. No, Park said firmly. Think about it. They are afraid of that signature. As long as they are afraid, they will not attack us. The moment we change it, they might see us as something different, something they are not afraid of. Mireille had been listening quietly. So our engine design is protecting us. They think we are something we are not. Exactly, Lee said. The question is, what do they think we are? The answer came the next day. Admiral Krathnos had decided to test the human ship. He ordered 6 cruisers to perform a mock attack. No actual weapons fire, just an aggressive approach. If the humans were truly the architects, they would respond with overwhelming power. Park was reviewing reports when the alarm sounded. 6 massive ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel around the Teguk. Their weapons were powered up. Their shields were active. Battle stations. Mirai shouted. Captain, recommend we fire first. Target their engines and jump away. Park felt his mouth go dry. Each of those ships was 50 times larger than the Taeguk. If they fired even once, his ship would be destroyed. But something told him that firing first would be the worst possible choice. Raise shields to maximum, he ordered. But do not charge weapons. Open all communication channels and broadcast surrender if they fire on us. Sir, that is suicide, Mirai protested. That is an order, Park said quietly. Hold position. Do not fire. The 6 alien cruisers accelerated toward the Taeguk. On the tactical display, the distance closed rapidly. 5,000 kilometers, 4,000, 3,000. The alien ships were close enough that crew members could see them through the view screen now. Massive metal cities in space bristling with weapons. At the last possible moment, the alien ships broke away. They curved around the Taeguk and jumped back to faster-than-light travel. Gone as quickly as they had appeared. The bridge was silent for several seconds. Then someone let out a shaky breath. Park realized it was himself. They were testing us, Lee said softly. They wanted to see how we would respond. And we held our ground without firing, Park replied. I hope that was the right answer. 20 hours later, the Taeguk received a transmission. Not words, but mathematical concepts, prime numbers, the Fibonacci sequence, basic physics equations. It was a language that any intelligent species could understand. And at the end of the transmission was a set of coordinates and a time. They want to meet, Lee said, his voice filled with wonder. Park looked at his senior officers. Mirai was suspicious. Lee was excited. Han looked worried. They were about to become the first humans to have a real conversation with aliens, and Park had no idea if they would survive it. The meeting coordinates led to a binary star system with no planets. When the Taeguk arrived, a single alien cruiser was waiting. It was alone, which Park hoped was a good sign. Both ships maintained a careful distance from each other, neither one fully lowering their shields. Dr. Lee Hyan had not slept properly in 3 days. He sat at his station with dark circles under his eyes, but his expression was pure joy. This was what he had studied his entire life for. The chance to communicate with another intelligent species. The communication started slowly. First came more mathematics, then physics. Simple concepts that any advanced civilization would understand. Gravity, light, energy. From there, they built a basic vocabulary, objects, actions, directions. It was like watching a child learn to speak, except both sides were learning at the same time. After a week, they could exchange simple ideas. The alien captain identified herself as Velmara. She commanded the cruiser Wrath of Stars. She was curious about humanity, where they came from, how they developed faster than light travel, their history. Park noticed that Velmara asked many questions but offered few answers in return. She was gathering intelligence. He decided to be honest but careful. He told her about Earth, about humanity's wars and eventual unification, about their first steps into space. But he did not share technical specifications or military capabilities. Lee worked 18-hour days to improve the communication. After 2 weeks, they could have actual conversations, though the translations were still rough. Velmara seemed younger than the other alien officers they had detected. She asked questions that suggested she doubted her own government's official positions. Finally, after 3 weeks of careful dialogue, Velmara made an offer. She would show them something, information that would explain everything, but only if Park promised to keep an open mind. Park agreed. What Velmara sent changed everything. The data package contained historical records going back 3,000 years, images, videos, technical readouts. Park, Lee, and Mirai watched together in the captain's ready room. What they saw made Park's blood run cold. The videos showed massive ships that seemed to be alive. They moved through space like fish swimming through water. Their hulls rippled and changed shape. Beings of pure energy floated beside them, glowing with power that made sensor equipment overload just from recording them. These were the architects. An ancient civilization that had seeded life across the galaxy millions of years ago. They had disappeared for most of history, but 3,000 years ago they returned. They came to check on the civilizations that had grown from their seeds. The architects judged each species they found. They looked for certain qualities: cooperation, wisdom, restraint. 3 of the 5 major civilizations at that time failed the test. The architects declared them too violent and aggressive. The recording showed what happened next. Entire planets turned to dust in seconds. Billions of lives ended. The three aggressive species were erased from existence. Then the architects departed again, leaving behind two terrified civilizations that swore never to be helpless again. Those two species built the Galactic Empire. For 3,000 years they grew and conquered. They crushed any emerging civilization before it could become a threat. They controlled 40,000 worlds and 200 subject species. They ruled through fear and overwhelming force, all because they were afraid of the architects returning. And they think we are the architects, Lee whispered. That is why they ran away. Velmara sent another message. She explained that humanity's engine signature was nearly identical to the energy patterns the architects used. When Imperial sensors detected the Teguk, automatic alerts triggered across their entire military. Protocols that had not been used in 3,000 years suddenly activated. The Empire was terrified. But we are not the architects, Park said. This is just a coincidence. Engineer Han modified our engines. He created this signature by accident. Lee was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, do we tell them that? Do we reveal that we have no connection to the architects at all? Mirai understood immediately. If we tell them the truth, they will realize we are just another emerging civilization. And their policy for emerging civilizations is extermination. Park felt sick. They had stumbled into an impossible situation. The Empire was afraid of them because of a misunderstanding. But that fear was the only thing keeping humanity safe. If they revealed the truth, the Empire might destroy Earth immediately. We need to think about this carefully, Park said. Call Engineer Han up here. We need everyone's input on this decision. When Han arrived and learned the situation, he had a different idea. I could make the signature even stronger. Make them think we have even more advanced technology. It might buy us more time. That is deception, Lee protested. We would be lying to them. Building a relationship on false pretenses. We would be staying alive, Mirai countered. Sometimes survival requires deception. They argued for hours. Park listened to all sides. He understood Lee's moral concerns. He understood Mirai's practical approach. He understood Han's technical solution. But the decision was his alone to make. Before he could decide, another message arrived from Earth. The warning probe they had sent 6 months earlier had finally reached home. Earth's government had analyzed all the data and sent a response. A fast courier ship was already on its way, carrying an official ambassador and new orders. Ambassador Choi Yoonji arrived 3 months later. She was 52 years old, a career diplomat with a reputation for getting results. She came aboard the Teguk with a staff of advisors and enough supplies for a permanent embassy. Park briefed her on everything that had happened. Choi listened carefully, asking sharp questions that showed she understood the complexity of their situation. When he finished, she was quiet for several minutes. Earth's official position is this, she finally said. We pursue peaceful coexistence with the Empire, but we maintain strategic ambiguity about our relationship to the architects. We do not claim to be them. We do not deny being related to them. We simply avoid giving a direct answer. That is still deception, Lee said. It is diplomacy, Choi replied. Sometimes the truth is complicated. Our engine signature is similar to the architects. That is a fact. Whether that similarity is meaningful or not, we genuinely do not know. We have never met the architects. How can we say for certain that we have no connection to them? Park saw the logic, even if he did not entirely like it. They would not lie outright, but they would not volunteer information that could get humanity destroyed either. During her first week aboard, Choi met with Captain Velmara several times. The two seemed to develop a rapport. Velmara admitted something shocking. She was part of an underground network within the Empire, a group called the Remnant. The Remnant consisted of officers and civilians from the 200 conquered species. They had been working in secret for centuries, waiting for an opportunity to change the Empire from within. They did not want to destroy it, but they wanted to transform it into something better, a federation where all species were equal. Velmara proposed an alliance. If humanity worked with the Remnant, they could create a situation where the Empire had to negotiate rather than fight. But it would be dangerous. If the plan failed, both humanity and the Remnant would face extermination. Choi brought the proposal to Park and his senior staff. This is bigger than just humanity now. We have a chance to help free 200 enslaved species, but it will put us at greater risk. Mirai was skeptical. We should focus on protecting Earth. Helping other species is noble, but it is not our responsibility. Lee disagreed strongly. If we have the power to help and we choose not to, what does that say about us? The architects judged species on their ethics. Maybe we should judge ourselves by the same standard. Park found himself agreeing with Lee. Humanity had stumbled into a position of unexpected influence. They could use that influence selfishly, or they could try to make the galaxy better. It was a choice that would define who humanity was as a species. But before they could make a final decision, Velmara sent an urgent message. The Empire had mobilized its full military strength. 10,000 capital ships were converging on the border of human space. Supreme Admiral Krathnos had convinced the ruling council to act. The Empire was coming, and they were coming in force. "How long do we have?" Park asked. Velmara's response was grim. 6 months, maybe less. Park looked at Ambassador Choi. They had 6 months to prepare for war, negotiate for peace, or somehow accomplish both. The fate of humanity and possibly 200 other species now rested on the decisions they made in the next few weeks. The time for careful consideration was over. Now they had to act. Earth had 6 months to prepare for the largest military force in galactic history. It was not enough time to build a fleet that could match 10,000 capital ships, but Ambassador Choi had other ideas. She worked with Engineer Han and a team of Earth's best scientists on something called Project Aegis. They could not build real warships in 6 months, but they could build satellites that generated the same energy signature as the Taeguk. From a distance, Imperial sensors would detect what appeared to be dozens of ships with architect-level technology. It was a massive bluff. Up close, the deception would be obvious. But from across a star system, it might be enough to make the Empire hesitate. And hesitation was all humanity needed. While Earth prepared its defenses, Dr. Lee Hyan worked on something equally important. He established secret communication channels with subject species across the Empire. The message was carefully worded. Humanity was not the architects, but the Empire did not need to know that. If the conquered worlds rose up while the Empire was focused on humanity, they might win their freedom. Lieutenant Commander Mirai struggled with the plan. She had been trained as a soldier to fight with honor. The idea of hiding behind a false reputation felt wrong to her. She argued with Ambassador Choi repeatedly. "This is cowardice," Mirai said during one heated meeting. "We should fight, not hide behind tricks." "This is survival," Choi replied calmly. "The Empire has 40,000 worlds. We have one. They have technology thousands of years more advanced. We have cleverness and luck. I will use every advantage we have, and I will not apologize for it." Captain Park found himself caught between the two views. He understood Mirai's feelings. There was something distasteful about building an entire strategy on deception, but he also understood that Ambassador Choi was right. Humanity would do whatever it took to survive. Meanwhile, Captain Velmara revealed more about the Remnant. The organization was larger than anyone had suspected. It had members in every branch of imperial government and military. Some were high-ranking officers. Some were clerks and technicians. All of them were from conquered species, and all of them wanted change. The Remnant proposed a coordinated uprising. When the Imperial Armada reached human space, rebellions would erupt across 200 worlds simultaneously. The Empire would face an impossible choice: pursue humanity or maintain control of their territory. Either way, their grip on power would weaken. But there was a terrible risk. High Counselor Threnica, despite opposing war with humanity, would not tolerate rebellion. If the uprisings failed, the Empire would respond with genocide. Entire species could be wiped out. The Remnant was asking humanity to risk not just Earth, but 200 other civilizations as well. Park called a meeting with his senior staff and Ambassador Choi. They had to decide whether to support the Remnant's plan. It was the hardest decision Park had ever faced. "We cannot make this choice alone," Lee said. "This affects billions of lives. We need to consult with Earth." "There is no time," Choi replied. "Messages take months to reach Earth. The Remnant needs an answer now, or they will act without us." The debate went on for hours. Finally, Park made his decision. They would support the Remnant, but with conditions. The rebellions would focus on taking control of key infrastructure, not on killing Imperial citizens. They would demand reform, not destruction. It had to be revolution, not massacre. 3 weeks before the Imperial Armada was scheduled to reach Earth, something unexpected happened. High Counselor Thranika sent a secret message directly to the Teguk. She knew about the remnant. She had known for years. And now she wanted to make a deal. Park, Choi, and Velmara met in a secure communication channel to hear her proposal. Thranika's translated voice was calm but firm. "I have allowed the remnant to exist because I believe the Empire needs reform," she said. "But Supreme Admiral Krathnos has discovered the conspiracy. He plans to purge the remnant leadership before attacking humanity. Thousands will die. What do you want from us?" Choi asked. "Truth," Thranika replied. "Tell me honestly. Are you the architects? Are you their descendants? Are you their students? Give me the truth and I will stop Krathnos. I will work toward peaceful coexistence. Lie to me and I will let him destroy you all." The ultimatum hung in the air. Park looked at Choi. This was the moment they had been dreading. Tell the truth and risk everything, or maintain the lie and risk something even worse. "I need time to discuss this with my government," Choi said carefully. "You have 72 hours, Thranika said. "Then Krathnos moves with or without my approval." The connection ended. Park felt exhausted. Every decision seemed to lead to more impossible choices. "What do we do?" he asked Choi. The ambassador was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was heavy. "We tell her a version of the truth. We are not the architects. We have no direct connection to them, but our engine signature is similar to theirs. We do not know why. We genuinely do not know if that similarity means something, or if it is pure coincidence. That is the honest answer." "Will she accept that?" Velmara asked. "I do not know," Choi admitted. "But it is the truth and it leaves room for doubt. Sometimes doubt is the best diplomacy can offer." They spent the next 48 hours crafting the message. Every word was chosen carefully. They explained humanity's history, their independent development of faster-than-light travel, the accidental creation of the architect-like signature. They admitted they had never met the architects. They could not claim any connection they could not prove. But they also did not rule out the possibility that the architects had somehow influenced humanity's development. Perhaps the architects had seeded Earth with life millions of years ago. Perhaps they had left behind knowledge that humans discovered without realizing its source. The truth was nobody knew. They sent the message to Thranika with 6 hours to spare. Then they waited. Those 6 hours felt like 6 years. Finally, Thranika responded. Her message was brief. She believed them, or at least she believed they were being honest about their uncertainty. She would prevent the purge of the remnant. She would work to remove Admiral Krathnos from command, but she could not stop the Armada. It was already in motion. "The fleet will reach your space in 2 weeks," her message concluded. "What happens then depends on both of our peoples. I hope we choose wisdom over fear." Park sent an urgent message to Earth. Project Aegis needed to be ready. Every defense platform needed to be active. Every ship humanity had needed to be prepared. This was it. The moment that would decide whether humanity survived or joined the list of species the Empire had erased. As the final preparations were made, Dr. Lee Hyen came to Park with an unexpected discovery. He had been studying the architect ruins that Velmara had provided access to. Deep in the ancient structures, he found something that changed everything. The architects had not disappeared. They had transcended, evolving beyond physical form, and they had left behind a test. The energy signature was not just technology. It was a beacon, designed to identify species that had developed certain ethical and technological markers. It was a test of character. The Empire failed the test 3,000 years ago, Lee explained excitedly. They responded to the architects with fear and violence. But we responded differently. We held our ground without attacking. We sought communication. We chose diplomacy over war. "Are you saying the architects wanted us to develop this signature?" Park asked. "Maybe," Lee said. "Or maybe Engineer Han's modifications worked because humanity had unknowingly developed the right ethical framework." The architects were not testing technology. They were testing wisdom. Ambassador Choi saw the implications immediately. "If we share this discovery with the Empire, it might change how they see us. We are not a threat. We are evidence that the architect's test can be passed." 2 weeks later, Admiral Krathnos's armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 10,000 ships, the largest military force in galactic history. Their weapons were charged. Their shields were raised. But when they scanned the system, they detected dozens of energy signatures matching the architect pattern. Project Aegis was working. The Empire saw what appeared to be a fleet of ships with ancient technology defending Earth. Admiral Krathnos hesitated. And in that, the Imperial Armada filled Earth's sensors like a metal storm. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Teguk, now positioned in orbit around his homeworld, and tried to comprehend what he was seeing. 10,000 capital ships, each one a floating city, each one capable of destroying a planet. But Admiral Krathnos did not give the order to attack. The Project Aegis satellites were broadcasting their false signatures perfectly. The Empire's sensors showed dozens of apparent architect technology vessels distributed across Earth's defensive perimeter. Krathnos could not know they were just unmanned satellites. From his position, it looked like humanity had a fleet. The standoff lasted 3 days. Captain Velmara shuttled back and forth between the fleets, carrying proposals and counter-proposals. High Counselor Threnica joined the negotiations, bringing historical records and legal precedents. But Krathnos remained stubborn. He demanded proof that humanity was not the architects returned. Ambassador Choi could not give him that proof. Not without revealing that the energy signatures were fake. Not without admitting humanity was just another emerging species. The negotiation seemed deadlocked. Then the remnant struck. Across 200 worlds, rebellions erupted simultaneously. Governors were overthrown. Garrison fleets mutinied. Subject species declared independence. It was not a single uprising. It was 200 simultaneous revolutions, coordinated perfectly after centuries of planning. The Empire's communication networks lit up with emergency alerts. Reports flooded in from every corner of Imperial space. Critical infrastructure was being seized. Imperial administrators were being arrested or forced to flee. The foundation of Imperial power was cracking. Admiral Krathnos faced his worst nightmare. He had brought 10,000 ships to destroy humanity, but his empire was collapsing behind him. He had to choose. Pursue the war with Earth or save his civilization. Split the fleet, he ordered. 5,000 ships return to suppress the rebellions. 5,000 remain here. High Counselor Threnica saw her opportunity. She called an emergency session of the Imperial Council and demanded Krathnos's removal. His decision to divide the fleet was proof of his incompetence. He had created this disaster through his aggressive policies. The council voted. Krathnos was removed from command. Threnica took control of the remaining 5,000 ships. Her first order was to stand down and open real negotiations with humanity. But before talks could begin, Dr. Li Haiyan broadcast his discovery about the architect's test to both fleets. The message explained everything. The architects had not disappeared. They had evolved beyond physical form. The energy signature was a test they left behind, a way to identify species that had developed the right combination of ethics and technology. The Empire had failed that test 3,000 years ago by responding with violence and fear. But humanity had responded differently. When surrounded by overwhelming force, they chose to communicate rather than attack. When they discovered the Empire's fear, they chose understanding over exploitation. When offered a chance to help liberate other species, they chose compassion over self-interest. We did not set out to pass any test, Li's broadcast concluded. We simply tried to do what seemed right. Perhaps that is the point. The architects were not testing our technology. They were testing our character. The revelation changed everything. Threnica saw it immediately. If humanity had passed the architect's test, then the Empire had been wrong. Wrong to rule through fear. Wrong to crush emerging civilizations. Wrong to believe that strength came only from violence. She ordered the fleet to fully stand down. Then she sent a message to Ambassador Choi. We wish to negotiate a new relationship, not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals building something better. But Admiral Krathnos, stripped of his command and humiliated, made one final desperate move. He took control of a squadron of ships still loyal to him. 500 vessels broke formation and accelerated toward Earth, weapons charging. If I cannot destroy the architects, I will destroy those who pretend to be them, his broadcast declared. Park watched the tactical display as 500 ships, each one massive and deadly, bore down on his homeworld. The Teguk's weapons could not stop them. Earth's defenses could not stop them. Project Aegis was revealed as the bluff it was. Lieutenant Commander Mirai came to his side. "Sir, Engineer Han has one option. He can overload our engines to produce a massive energy surge. It will look like we are summoning architect reinforcements. It might scare them into retreating. And it will destroy the Teguk," Park said quietly. "Kill everyone aboard." Mirai nodded. "Yes, sir. But it might save Earth." Park looked at his crew. These people had followed him across the galaxy. They had faced impossible situations with courage. Now he was being asked to sacrifice them. He opened his mouth to give the order. "Wait," Dr. Lee Hyon called out. "Captain, look at the sensors. Something is happening." On the tactical display, ships from Threnika's fleet were moving to intercept Krathnos. But not just Imperial ships. Ships from the Remnant were joining them. Even some of Krathnos' own squadron were breaking away, refusing to follow his suicidal orders. Captain Velmara's voice came over the communication channel. "Admiral Krathnos, stand down. This ends now. The empire you knew is finished. Something new is being born, and you cannot stop it." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Krathnos' ships began to power down their weapons. The old admiral knew he was beaten, not by humanity's weapons, but by his own people's choice to stop following him. The crisis was over. The war that could have destroyed humanity never happened. Instead, something unexpected began. Over the next few months, the empire transformed. It did not collapse, but it changed fundamentally. High Counselor Threnika worked with the Remnant to establish a new government structure. The empire became a federation where all species had equal representation. Conquered worlds were given the choice to stay or leave. Most chose to stay, but as partners instead of subjects. Humanity played a crucial role in the negotiations. Ambassador Choi became humanity's first representative to the new Galactic Federation. Captain Park was promoted to Admiral and led Earth's growing space fleet. Dr. Lee Hyon established the Institute for Architect Studies, dedicated to understanding the ancient civilization and their message. Lieutenant Commander Mirai finally found peace with the outcome. She had wanted to fight, but she learned that sometimes the greatest victories come without firing a shot. She became an instructor at Earth's new Space Academy, teaching the next generation of officers about diplomacy and restraint. Engineer Han's modifications to the faster-than-light drive became the foundation for a new generation of engines, but he always insisted on including safety protocols. The power to appear threatening had saved humanity, but it was a responsibility he took seriously. Captain Velmara became the first non-founding species to command a Federation fleet. She worked tirelessly to unite the different species and cultures. The Remnant's dream of equality was becoming reality. The Khan's Teguk was preserved as a museum ship, kept in orbit around Earth. Millions of visitors came each year to see the small vessel that had changed the galaxy, not through weapons but through presence and persistence. 20 years after the first encounter, Park received a message at his home. He had retired from active service and was teaching history at a university. The message was a complex mathematical sequence, beautiful and elegant. Dr. Lee Hyon analyzed it and confirmed what Park already suspected. It was from the architects. They had been watching. They had seen humanity stumble into their test. They had seen how humans responded to fear, power, and responsibility, and they were pleased. The message was simple. Humanity had passed, not by developing technology or winning battles, but by choosing wisdom, by seeking understanding instead of dominance, by helping others instead of exploiting them, by showing restraint when violence would have been easier. The architects were still out there, watching the galaxy, waiting for more species to pass their test. And now, humanity, along with their new allies, was ready to meet them. Park stood on his balcony that evening, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Teguk floated in orbit, a reminder of the day a small ship got too close to an empire and changed everything. He smiled. Humanity had set out to explore the galaxy and find aliens, They had succeeded beyond anyone's imagination. But more importantly, in that first terrifying encounter, when surrounded by ships that could destroy them easily, humanity had made a choice. They chose to communicate, to understand, to seek peace. And that choice had saved not just Earth but countless other worlds. Sometimes, Park reflected, the most powerful weapon was not a gun or a bomb. Sometimes it was simply the courage to not fire first.